Hey everyone, and welcome to one more episode on Conquer the Mirror Demon. My name is Tanja Andersen, and we have a special guest with us today. His name is Lee Devi. Hello, my friend.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
It is a big blessing, and I cannot wait for you to share more about what we get to talk about. And the topic we will talk about is radical self-responsibility for true freedom. And one of the points we will touch is around relationship. So, who is Lee Devi? I'll share a little bit who he is and why I pick him as a speaker, and he will share a little bit more about who he is so you get the whole picture on who is this amazing guy. So Lee Devi is an inspiration author, international author, creator, speaker, a breathwork spiritual leader in global health. Okay, my friends, you get to serve me with some words here. So before he share about who he is why I choose Lee Devi was because I saw one of his video on his webpage, where he was really connecting with his body, connecting with his breath work, and I was really drawn into it. It is not often I see a man as a strong man as he is, and he was so connected to his body. It was soft movement. I really like move as a movement like that really get me in as like on spirituality, how I get to move my body, how important it is for me to have a breath work. And that sense of feeling I get in me was why I reached out to Lee David, because he is so authentic and he is vulnerable and brave enough to share about who he is. There is really some deep stuff sometimes. So who are you, my dear friend?
Well, thank you so much for that. I really feel honored and grateful for you for sharing that. Um, I mean, I'm really just me. Nothing special, I would say, but I just remember at a very young age, kind of waking up, or not even waking up, but beginning to ask questions, and just like, who am I? Really, um, and that started me on this journey of really kind of putting the pieces together. And it started around 13, 14 years old, and really, um, it's been more than 30 years now of search and discovery, if you will, and even remembering, um, and I've kind of gone through everything from the quantum sciences and kind of understanding the neurophysiological aspects of, kind of who I am, and like the body and the spirit components, and doing everything from movement and breath work to detoxification, meditation, um, medicines, different things like that. And, really what I've discovered is that I'm an infinite being, as are you, and something I love to do with the breathwork sessions that I take people through, because there's a lot of talk about um, ego and humility, and and so what really is that line? And I'm grateful that you mentioned that, because it's been something that I've really tried to walk that line, and find that balance, or at least the ability to rebalance throughout my life. And I really feel like, yes, on one hand, we are everything. We all come from the same stuff. We're all made of the same stuff. We are all one, I believe, at a fundamental level, at a kind of a higher level of consciousness. But if we walk in our lives from that place first, meaning if we're like, "Yeah, I am God," then I think we can snag on the hooks of the ego, right? And then that borders on cockiness, and it's a can be a really big turnoff. Whereas if we enter the place of stillness first, and then nothingness, and then from nothingness remember that we're also everything, then I you know, for me at least, that's the perspective that I take and really try to live my life by is, yes, I am everything, but first I'm nothing. And, you know, the two sides are the whole. And if I remember that I'm everything first going into nothingness, then I can do so from a very humble place and walk with balance in this lifetime, or at least try to. That was
Oh,
kind of a long-winded story of a little bit, you know, a few different things, but yeah, that's essentially me. An infinite being that tries to stay humble.
I love that. I love that. Let us, and thank you for sharing. Let's go back to before you work with what you work with today. On what is one episode in your past that was the most challenging for you, where you really hit rock bottom, like really have a challenged life? Can you share a little bit around that?
You know, it's interesting. There've been a few. There've been a few dark nights of the soul, but the one time specifically that I can think of, is coming to mind right now is I was, how old was I? Maybe 23, 24 years old. And I had just been broken up with. It was a long-term relationship. I thought I was probably going to marry this girl, um, and I ended up going north. I was living in Toronto at the time, and I ended up going north and visiting some friends that I hadn't seen in a long time. And I drank a little too much wine, um, and decided I would try and drive to the bar after everyone else had gone to bed. The bars were actually closed, and so yeah, it was, I don't know, obviously the alcohol, but and I ended up getting pulled over by the police, and I didn't remember any of this. I ended up spending the night in jail and just um, or the whatever the next few hours till the morning, and didn't realize what had happened until I read the police report. Um, however many days or weeks afterwards, and just this whole like, it's kind of like my body lit up and was just kind of like, this is not, you know. I remember crying to my parents at the time, being like, you know, why do I keep doing this to myself? You know, it's like all of the, and you know, kind of when I look back, I think all of the hardest times in my life were a result of things that I had brought upon myself, whether through alcohol or, you know, different things like that. And it was just really a realization of, you know, wait a minute, like you're pretty lucky that you didn't, very lucky that you didn't hurt yourself or somebody else. Like, you know, it's time to straighten up. And there were a few things like that throughout my you know, early adult years, I guess you could say that, um, that were a part of my quest, and you know, I think even led me into doing things like ayahuasca and medicine work. You know, because it was just like, man, I've tried so hard to pattern interrupt and to do things better and to live a good life and be a good man, and you know, some of the traditional things weren't working, or were working maybe a little bit too slowly. And so that's when I would venture into, you know, medicine work and different things like that to really have a, you know, an incredible paradigm shift. And you know, I really feel like it's the culmination of both, you know, like the continuing the sacred self journey and, you know, taking step by step so that, you know, um, I love the quote that more isn't better, better is better, and better leads to more. You know, so taking those little steps, and then, you know, before you know it, a year's gone by, and you know, you kind of need a telescope to look back at how far you've come. You know, and every now and then, it's really good to, you know, as much as you can, shake things up with a retreat, or you know, a breath workshop, or some medicine, or you know, something like that. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah.
Amazing. You have touched point around what was some of the tools or was something you choose to turn that challenge around, as you share, like the natural medicines, different kind of retreats, different kind of maybe program, like different kind of things to really experience yourself and unlock yourself to find out like what is underneath that. It's like our onions. We get to really peel the layers of the onions. When you take a layer of the onion, it's sticking in the eyes. We are crying. And in the middle of this green onion, there's the beautiful, most beautiful green spear. And I see that is a self-development of finding what is the path for me or what is my vision is like a onion around self-development to self-discovering yourself. So what is 3 things that really have been the key element for you to be who you are today, to really like finding your way in life, to discovering yourself and really like taking radical responsibility for your own life?
3 things. I mean, it's such a beautiful question, and I have this. I don't know how unique it is, but my perspective is that, you know, life and reality are made up of all of these things, as am I, as are you. So it's, these 3 things without all of the other things, I wouldn't be I wouldn't be who I am, and really holistic. But if I had to choose 3 things, I would say the I think there's an education component to all of this, to remembering who you are, and really understanding how the mind, body, spirit connection works. So I think, really, the openness to explore, and the realization that I don't know anything. And the more that I learn, the more I realize I don't know, and so I think having that openness to explore, and then the realization that, man, I've still got so much to learn, and so I'd say that's like 1A and B, really, really being open, to self-discovery, and realizing that, every piece that you gather, it's really still only such a small fraction of who I truly am, of who we truly are, and we can continue to expand, because I believe it's an infinite journey.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd say like the discipline and kind of stick-to-itiveness that I have, because just like everybody else, I fall, and I have hard days, and I have days where I'm like, what is the point to it all? Like, why even get out of bed? Why even try? But then that passes. I sit with those feelings. I feel those feelings, and then I get up, and I try again. And typically, I try a little bit harder. So that stick-to-itiveness, and then the discipline to actually go along with that, to say, what, I know that I feel my best when I get up and I have my morning routine. I meditate, I go to the gym, I do my breath work, I eat quality food. That's the structure of the first part of every day for me. And I know that I feel worse if I don't do that. So having the discipline to do those things, and continue to show up, show up first for myself, so that I can show up for others more appropriately. And then the last thing, I mean, again, this is the kind of a whole bunch of things, but just the tools, and I'd say the most amazing tool is the breath. Um, and it's really the one medicine that we can't go without. We can go without food for days, we can go without water for a few days, but we can't go without the breath. So and again, there's all of these other components, like the food and water and so forth. But yeah, the breath is really such a powerful healing medicine. Allows you to really shut off your conscious mind and to tap into the fight or flight response, or the autonomic nervous system, so that you're able to actually relax the nervous system and come more into the parasympathetic, right? So that's kind of the rest and digest aspect of the self, so that you know, my mind's not always racing. It's much more calm, clear, and coherent and focused. And then that obviously releases all kinds of beautiful healing chemistry and creates healthier cells and more mitochondria, and which is more energy. And so the breath is a really, really powerful, beautiful tool.
Amazing. It's very interesting what you're sharing, because in the beginning, when I start my self-development, I use like 2 years, like very intense of like discovering myself around ego, like shadow works and the Enneagram and you name it. And after the 2 years, like, oh, I'm done to work on myself. I have no clue what I choose at that point, because I choose to really let it go of all my insight, my wisdom, the tools, the training. And what you really talk about is like radical self-responsibility for true freedom. For me, Andersen, that is really invest in yourself, as you're also sharing about, like really be in self-development, self-discovery, like all the time, like never stop on that, because I choose to stop and I choose to begin again for a few years ago. And I saw like, oh my God, that is the same to go in the exercise in the gym. If I choose to stop, I lose all my muscles, I lose my energy, I lose my health. And that is the same with really having radical self-responsibility to work on our mind, body and soul, or spirit. So there's so amazing. So what does radical self-responsibility for true freedom means to you?
I mean, there are two components. There's the sacred self journey, right? So tending to the self, you know, setting loving boundaries and all the stuff that we talked about, right? Like eating right, breathing, doing workshops, really understanding how the mind, body, spirit works, meditation. You know, and I kind of look at it as, if everything is frequency and we're a frequency, and we optimize all the frequencies that are, you know, going into us and around us, from, you know, our food to structured water to what we're thinking, tuning into how we're feeling, the words that we're speaking, you know, so on and so forth, then we're going to begin to optimize how this mind, body, spirit matrix within which the I resides actually works and functions. Right. And we're gonna vibrate at a higher level.
Amazing.
The other is aligning to and operating from the higher laws. Right. And you know, and it's not man-made laws. It's not subject to the whims of, you know, legislators or governments or things like that. These higher laws are in place and they're operating in our lives anyways, right? And it starts with the foundational law of the law of love and what is true. And it's the law of love always seeks to discover what is true. It always tells the truth, and it allows everything and feels everything, right? And then we've got the universal laws, like the law of polarity, of cause and effect, the Genesis principle. And again, these laws are operating, right? And they provide all of creation with a mathematical and philosophical framework, essentially from which, you know, everything in our material world actually comes from. Then we've got the laws of the soul, which, if you think of the laws of the soul as, I always love to use the analogy of the deer running in the woods, and it will, so it's being chased, right? It's in danger. It gets back to safety. It will continue to shake out that anxiety, that danger, that fear, until its soul comes back to a place of purity, right? Of homeostasis. We are the only animal that is told to stifle our feelings. You know, big girls don't cry, big boys don't cry. You know, you're embarrassing mommy and daddy. And so we learn at a very young age to, instead of feeling those feelings and continuing to be angry and sad and whatever, to hold on to those feelings and suppress them. And then the subconscious mind develops. And now, as adults, and much of the work that you know, I think we're doing as adults, some adults are doing, is to go back and unpack all of that stuff, all of that trauma, all of the wounding, all those feelings that we never were okay or felt safe enough to feel.
Yeah, I have an interesting question for you here, because it is so interesting you touched upon around the deer. The deer is a magic animal. Like, we can learn so much for the deer. Is unbelievable. So in the animal world, or also like you touched upon on, if something happened, they are shaking to shake it off. And one of my old quotes say to me, we as human, we also get to learn that tools, because we can learn it if we experience fear, anxiety, pressure. We can shake our body or do different kind of tools for us to really be present and in sync and in flow with our being inside. So I'd like to hear your insight on that. Something I do is going out in the forest and screaming and shouting. Or taking a newspaper or destroying that, or jump on a trampoline, like really like move my body. So I will like move it fast and use my muscle in the meantime. So I would like to know, like, what are you choosing of different kind of tools, exercise, when you really experience this kind of, we're talking about on the deer shaking, like how can we human step in that fast to be present and being float again in our mind, soul, and body, or spirits?
Well, I don't think it's not just one thing, right? Or one time. It's like, again, we've been trained to hold on to this stuff, and now it's like when something happens in our lives and we get triggered and we get angry, then instead of just processing that moment and that feeling and allowing the feelings to flow through us freely, which they're supposed to do, we've got this backlog. We've got all this stuff from our earlier years that we've got to unpack.
Yeah.
So bringing, you mentioned the layers of the onion before, and it's like, you can use the current moment and the current trigger to really sit with the emotion and feel the feelings and say, okay, like, you can put your hand on your heart and be like, what am I feeling in this moment? Anger, okay. Some anger, some sadness, some shame. Okay, what's the shame? And just really communicate, and the more that you do this, the better you'll be at identifying the feelings and where they are in the body. And instead of, running from them or suppressing them, you sit with them and you feel them, right? And you mentioned nature. Like, nature is a beautiful place to be able to do that. But anytime you can, we should be able to identify, sit with, and communicate our feelings in any given moment, right? In any given interaction. And when we relearn, when we remember how to do this, then not only is it going to allow us to feel those feelings more, and as we feel them, we're going to be able to retrain our nervous system. So not only is that going to happen, but we're actually going to provide space, and we're going to open up space for better communication between each other. And it's going to allow for a deeper connection and a deeper level of healing in our relationships as well.
100%, like 100% is so important. I really also like how fast the kids, like when I see my niece, if she experiences the feeling, is going 1 minute and she out of it, it's just like, what? I get to be a little bit more kids and just like, I'm here again. It's like, we can learn so much for the deer, we can learn so much for the kids. I really like, when I choose to connect with my emotions, when I really choose and experience all the emotions, different kind in the moments, when I choose to connect with it and say, be present, say like, I see you, thank you for coming to me, I acknowledge you, I am here to listen to you, like, what miss to have me, that shake up so fast compared to like, not now, I'm focused on something else. That can really like put a stick in my whole day of the energy, of my focus, of the flow. So it is so interesting how fast it can, like, when we choose to say no, we are choosing to say no to ourselves. We say no to, for me, as I see it, like, I'm doing self-harm to myself if I choose to say no to be one with it, or 2 minutes be present with it. And my
Absolutely.
whole day will not be ruined for me to pay like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, like really be in it.
Absolutely. And that, you know, having that level of presence as well is incredibly important, right? Because you can, if you're not present to the moment, then how do you know what you're feeling? Right. So, you know, there's a level of presence that is necessary, you know, and I think in humanity, we've gotten so good at co-regulating, right? And staying busy. And, you know, most people you ask how they're doing, it's like, oh, so busy, so busy, you know, and it's like, okay, but like, A, are you? And B, like, have you ever stopped and asked yourself the question why you create so much busyness for yourself? Is it just distract you from feeling the feelings, you know, being
Mm.
present with the feelings? And it's like, if you can really come to that place of presence, then initially maybe it'll be hard and the feelings might be heavy, but it gets lighter and it gets easier and it gets better,
100%.
you know? And the last thing I want to mention about these higher laws is that, like, the law of love, the universal laws, and the laws of the soul are the energetic components, right? It's like we're once we clean all of that stuff out and clean ourselves up energetically and spiritually, then we can actually operate in this reality from the higher laws, right? And we can begin to express our own law, right? And you can think of it as creating no trespassing signs on your property, right? And today we've been we've been coerced and duped into playing this game, which are uh, essentially contracts of commerce. But because we don't have full closure as to what's happening at the time of our birth and when we get, um, you know, our birth certificates and the all capitalization of our names, all this stuff, it's these contracts are null and void if we speak up and we express ourselves. But if we don't know the difference and we don't know how to do that and we don't know the proper languaging and the proper terminology, then um, we're having to obey these contracts by like tacit agreements, right? It's and you know if we're not able to speak up or we don't say anything, it's just like we're agreeing to them. You know,
Mm.
so there's tons of information and one that I love is called um, quantum parse syntax grammar. And that is in how not only how we articulate our words, but how they're written down. And most language is left fully open to interpretation.
Mm.
And you know, a great example of this is, you know, does 2 and 2 equal 4? Does TWO plus TOO equal FORE? Or does TOO plus TO equal FOUR? You know, so there's an interpretation to that. So only by the proper punctuation of colons, semicolons, hyphens, you know, different things like that, will we be able to bring our language from its interpretive fictional state to one of non-interpretive fact. And we
Mm.
end up placing facts on the page to take control of our what's known as our now space. And Russell Russell hyphen J colon Gold is the creator of this and the founder of this.
Mm.
And so all of that is to say that there are these steps that we can go through to not only kind of take control of our, you know, and um, remember who we truly are, the mind, body, spirit aspects of the self and the radical sacred self journey, but we can align to and operate from these higher laws and actually take control and truly free ourselves on every level.
Definitely. And I really also know what is in my control or what is out of my control, and really like taking, like choosing to owning radical self-responsibility to experience freedom, like really experience your soul free to be your true identity, your true character, is like really like knowing what is in my control and work from there and let it go of all
Absolutely.
the other stuff.
Absolutely. You know, and another way, like if all of this stuff feels too like kind of woo-woo, just think of it as peak performance. You know,
Mm.
what can we do to optimize our peak performance? And peak performance is not just at work. You know, it's how you show up in your life with your loved ones, connection, you know, the amount of health that you have. All of it is peak performance. So, you know, what can you do in your life to create a higher level of peak performance in all areas, in all aspects, on all levels?
I've never think about that before. I was like, oh, because when you say peak performer, I see like a speaker on the stage, not like in all areas of life. Just like, oh, that is new. And so true, like really like owning what they call self-responsibility is like in every areas, like how can I be the highest as possible in my being?
Mhm. Mhm.
Perfect.
And you know, and those things like peak performance and freedom are really relatable in my eyes, because if you don't have all the tools, you can't show up in peak performance. If you're not free, how do you show up in your relationships, you know, and in your life fully authentic, you know, without expectations, you know, of others or expecting anything in return, you know, and that goes from, you know, how you're showing up and how you're acting, and how you're moving throughout your life to, you know, travel and business and, you know, taxation and everything else, you know, and um, yeah, I just kind of wanted to mention that. That was just kind of coming through, like the parallels to peak performance and freedom and radical self-responsibility.
Amazing. Thank you. Lee, you have amazing gift, a free gift to the audience that is seeing this amazing interview. So can you tell us a bit about what that gift is for people that's watching your amazing interview?
Absolutely, yeah. I've got so every other week I do a free online breathwork session, and it's on Tuesdays at 2:22 Eastern time. And so it's just a half hour. I don't go into a lot of detail about, you know, the kind of the how. I just, you know, we take 20 to 30 minutes, and I just breathe with people and take them through what I call 5D breath work. And you know, it's a system that kind of came through me, and it's just, you know, 30 minutes every couple of weeks that you can take for yourself. You can take a time out, just to experience the breath if you haven't experienced it before, to maybe go a little bit deeper if you have, and to really, you know, like I said before, like take that time and shut off the thinking mind, you know, come out of the mind a little bit, come back into the heart, to flood the
Mm.
body with beautiful, you know, virus fighting chemistry, happy endorphins, feel good hormones. You know, you bring more coherence to the brain. If you make this a regular practice, you produce more mitochondria, which are the energy production components of the cells. You're able to liberate energy from the microtubules, so old stored energy, you know, like that that deer that's actually held on to their emotions in those frequencies. You're able to liberate a little bit of that as well. So it's a really powerful, just beautiful opportunity to, as I mentioned before, show up for yourself first.
Beautiful, beautiful. And where can you find that is going back to the email. There's all the links to Lee David's work and the newsletter, or all you need to know about him is going back in the newsletter. There's everything you need to know about him and the work, and where you get access to this half hour each week. So before we end this interview, David, Lee, is what is one thing you would like to the audience to go with? Like one takeout would you like the audience to go with?
I think it begins with being open. You know, I mentioned that with you know, regard to my journey, and it can also be looked at as, you know, there's a great book called Open or Fixed Mindsets. I think it's by Carol Dweck. And, you know, a fixed mindset says that hey, like things are the way they are. I am the way I am. You know, I've got a certain amount of abilities, and these are my traits, and I can't expand beyond that. And an open mindset says, no, like we are, doesn't say it, you know, doesn't say that we're infinite beings, but we are infinite beings that can learn and continue to grow and to continue to expand, you know, and so I would pose the question, do you know everything that you think you know? Or do you just think you know it, right? Because of tradition or because of whatever, right? Like, have you gone through the research? Have you gone through the experiences, you know, to maybe say the contrary? And so I would propose to be open to the idea that you are so much greater than you've been told, that, you know, you can do so much more, you can be so much more, you can have so much more. But if you're not open to it, you're not open to exploring, you know, don't discount things just because you don't know them, right? It's like, you know, that won't work. Have you tried it? Have you given it a fair chance? You know, so be open, give things a fair chance, try things, get beyond your comfort zone, you know, get beyond things. And if it scares you, that's probably the direction you should go,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Because that, you know, I believe that life begins at the edge of your comfort zone,
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
and if you're comfortable, then you're probably in a routine, you're probably kind of going through the motions, right? So get out of your comfort zone, be open to new possibilities and to the pure potential that you are. And I think when you're able to do that, and then you go into experiences that maybe previously scared you or that you kind of frowned upon or thought, oh, you know, that couldn't work, it's too simple. Like breath. It's like I breathe every day. Do you though? Do you deep, fully, cyclically breathe with your eyes closed for 20, 30, 40 minutes? And then do you play with the holds? And do you experience euphoric feelings? Do you experience just pure bliss and quietude and stillness? If your answer is no, then you probably don't breathe. You know? So so be open, try new things, take little steps, right? And I think as you do, a whole new world of possibilities and magic will open up to you.
Amen to that. Thank
And take
you.
radical self-responsibility.
100%. And that
Yeah,
means to be uncomfortable, in my words.
absolutely.
Thank you so much, Lee. Choosing to be here, choosing to share your voice, choosing to share your gifts, and really be to service to others that really needs this connecting to mind, soul, and spirits. Like it is so needed in this time. So thank you so much for being a person that stands in the line and show people the way how they get connected with it, because you know the blueprint to step into that. So thank you so much for being that person. I appreciate it a lot, and thank you so much, the audience, for your time, for you being here, and for your commitments to this work and to Lee, and be open, and the door will open for so many opportunities. You have no clue what is waiting for you on the other side of the to be open. Thank you so much, Lee. Amazing day, my friend.
Thank you, Tanya. Have a
Thank
beautiful
you.
day.
Bye,
So,
everyone.
cheers.